Since the country started implementing measures to stop the spread of COVID-19, including a partial lockdown that has now entered its 36th day, various people and organizations have been donating money, food items, cars, and other materials in support of government's efforts to fight the global pandemic. Besides the 932 billion shilling supplementary budget that was recently passed by Parliament and disbursed to different government ministries and agencies, at the forefront of the fight against COVID-19, the National Task Force in charge of donations has so far received over 21 billion shillings and several tons of food items.
And my colleague is holding another check here of 100 million of the austerity here in Kampala. So this is our contribution, and we trust these funds will be used properly.
However, the public is watching, and those giving expect accountability for every penny spent. Auditors have cautioned the task force to ensure they have all the proof of how the money is spent and items doled out.
In order not to have any questions being asked later on, there has to be records from the beginning. How did you receive these items? Who did you intend to give them to? And how did the ultimate beneficiary get them? So from the beginning, you must have guidelines, records. I'm receiving the following items. This is the totality of the items. I'm then supposed to give it to them to maybe the districts. The districts also must have processes in place to ensure that whatever they're receiving is also recorded, and then how they then distribute it to the localities and ultimately to the final beneficiary.
Although some of the donations have been made public, questions have been asked as to how money that is not captured will be traced by auditors. The task force came up with a Stanbic bank account on which the money is deposited after over 2 billion shillings was donated.
If there was money that was received that's not been recorded, then it's very difficult to know, very difficult to trace it, because you just don't know what you're tracing. So right from the beginning, the task force must make sure during this period that if there's such money that has been received, it needs to be recorded as soon as possible. They need to carry out an exercise to establish money that appears not to have gone through the banking system. It needs to be captured so that it's also tracked and how it was spent, because because remember, the general public is keen, especially now. The general public is not going to be entertaining explanations about funds received not recorded.
The president recently asked MPs who received 20 million shillings to deposit it with the district task force, which also receives other donations on behalf of government. There have also been complaints about the conflicting instructions on how the money should be spent at the districts. This is the auditor's advice.
If you're getting conflicting instructions, usually you go back to who gave you that money in the first place. Get the task force to intervene and to give you the guidance as to what to do, because ultimately you are accountable now to the task force.
Also, different districts have different COVID-19 challenges. However, to the accounting officers, it's not about the accountability, but rather the approved activity to be spent on.
In that situation, the accounting officer needs to seek the approval, perhaps, of the task force to divert funds to another need that he sees in his district, or another emergency that these funds could be used, but again, within the parameters that have been set for him by the task force. That is the only way he can avoid any questions going forward.
So how about some of the people who might doctor accountability records?
In order to find that out, then you would have to know from the beginning who was the intended beneficiary. And you follow that list and see whether or not those who were supposed to receive actually did receive. So you'd have to probably go ahead and visit some of these localities.
In a nutshell, for those tasked with COVID-19 money, they must ensure that they have proper documentation and evidence for every expenditure made and also follow the right procedures. This is because after all this is done, an audit will be carried out, and if anybody is found to have mismanaged the funds, legal action will follow suit. Sudil Biarhanga, NTV.